Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the AireyBros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of AireyBros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
What up, y'all? It's your boy Rich Airey, aka the 100-Mile Dick, and this is AireyBros Radio. As always, my dance partner, the Prince of 1512. What up, dog?
What up, dog pound? Prince James here. How you doing today, Richie Rich?
Living the dream. Better than most.
Not even trying to boast. It's a state of mind. It's heavenly. It's divine. What we got for the people today, Richie?
Today, on episode 21 of AireyBros Radio, we got Gene Lezark, correct?
Yes, sir.
Gene is the owner, proprietor, head coach of CJA Wrestling, one of the premier wrestling clubs in New Jersey, and one of the OG wrestling clubs in New Jersey.
Yeah, this was a special podcast for me. I had the superstar coaching staff when I wrestled at Middlesex County College. I had Mike Mao, I had Coach Byard, and I had Gene. So to get Gene on to kind of cap off having all my coaches on was really epic, and getting to listen to Gene talk about how CJA started and kind of where it's taken him, and just kind of get Gene's views on wrestling. You know, Gene is one of the few club coaches that really doesn't put a lot of stock into what his kids do. Like, obviously he wants his kids to do good, but Gene understands it's past wrestling and it's past your accomplishments in wrestling. That's why I think he has always had a high caliber kid come out of his club. You know, growing up, I used to think that Gene was nuts because the wrestlers that went to his club, and then when I had Gene as a coach, I realized it was more so where the club was located, and he was dealing with some of those crazies in that area. But then when I got to know Gene more and got to know the kids more that went to his club, I always, knew they were stand-up guys, worked really hard. Gene was one of the first coaches that really got me into watching videotape, and to get to talk to him about his mindset on wrestling and how he approaches wrestling was really cool. And I really think our listeners and our wrestling fans are really going to appreciate this podcast.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and it's always great to talk to people in the wrestling world that have a mind similar to what we think about the sport and how the sport can be better and how you can develop kids better. So it's really refreshing to talk to guys like Gene, to talk to guys like Coach Heller, Mike as always, and then Reese. From my perspective, from where I'm coming from, it makes me happy to know that, that's the direction that people are trying to ascend, with wrestling, because I think in my own experiences and then things that I've observed, both as a competitor but then also as a coach, there's a lot of negativity surrounding it, and it's, at the end of the day, wrestling is a martial art. Some people can argue, myself included, that it is the greatest martial art or the most dominant martial art. But martial arts, they teach kids discipline. They teach people how to be better human beings. They teach you how to strive and persevere when the going gets tough. And, I think there's just little things like weight cutting and just people that are in it for the wrong reasons that kind of sours people or leaves them with a bad taste in your mouth. So to talk to Gene and to hear his thoughts and his perspectives on what he emphasizes, it was a great conversation, and I'm grateful that we were able to get him on and talk with him for a bit.
Yeah, to give Gene that spotlight to kind of put him over and put himself over, because Gene's not a guy who really brags. Gene's not going to tell you about how many state champs he has or NCAA place winners. You know, I know that, you know that, just because we followed the sport for so long, and we know the kids that have been in there, the kids, some of the best in the state, always getting privates with Gene, always getting that one-on-one time with Gene. But Gene's not the type of guy to post those kids on his website or to brag about it. So to kind of just give Gene a platform to let everyone know that, hey, here's a guy who's been running this club in New Jersey for over 20 years and has been doing a really good job at it, and he's still doing it. You know, like, how many clubs have we seen come and go? And Gene has been there since day one, and he's still doing it, and he's still one of the top clubs in the state of New Jersey. So to give Gene this opportunity, for Gene to give us this opportunity to have him on and let the people know about Gene and what he's done for the sport of wrestling in the state of New Jersey, means a lot to me, just because Gene has done so much for me as a coach. I hope everyone really enjoys this podcast, because I know we had a really good time recording it.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Sit back, relax, enjoy today's episode of AireyBros Radio. Much love. Namaste from the boys of 1512. Would you wish you had a little bit more of the high school scene?
No. I like both. Don't matter.
Yeah.
You know, they both have different needs. Some kids, a lot of my youth kids, believe it or not, are like way more advanced than a lot of my high school kids. So, you know, it doesn't make a difference.
What do you think?
And then,
what do you think that is with the youth kids being more advanced and maybe more into it than the high school kids?
I think it's the parents. I don't think it really is the kids, to be honest with you. I think, you know, majority of the parents I have, you know, are they're just not into it. You know, I used to deal more on the phones with parents back in the day, and everything's more sociable. Now they just kind of drop them off. You never see them. I don't even know who half of them are. And the youth parents, you know, they stick around because they don't want to drop their kid off and just leave them. But I do see more parents like sticking around and doing more things, traveling to tournaments. I don't know what it is, man. Maybe it's something in the air, but this generation definitely feels like it changed, you know. But it's definitely the parents.
Do you prefer the parents being more hands-off?
No, I think they got to know, you know, where they stand. So they got to make sure they get them rides to the club. They can't be bothering me while I'm teaching, you know. So that, you know, I don't care if they drop them off, leave, come back and get them. It's good that, you know, they communicate with me and make small conversation. As long as they're not telling me how to coach, you know, I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. But
you get that sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, once in a while. But now I'm a little older, Jim, so I don't really take shit, you know. So, no, but in all fairness, I think the ones that are more involved, the kids seem to do better, as long as they're not over the top on the kids, because then you definitely see the kids burn out, which I've seen several times over the years.
Yeah, now, being a father yourself now, and
yep.
Yeah, are your boys wrestle?
Yeah, they're both 11 and 9, and I've been wrestling a few years now.
How do you manage that, giving advice and caring, but at the same time not being too all in and being too much?
It's a really good question. Basically, I keep my distance. I try not to get on them too much, and we're taking it more like a marathon. Just from the lessons I've learned dealing with parents over the years, I feel like the best ones are the ones that, you know, let the coach do their thing. And me being a coach, you know, I try not to ride them too much. I just treat them like everybody else during a class, treat them no differently. I think my parents actually always come up to me, they're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't even know that was your kid. You know, parents of kids that are there for months. So I just try to treat them like everybody else in a room. But, you know, you want to see them do well. But they got a while, so I'm taking it slow. They've never been to a state qualifier or anything yet. Like, there's really no rush. And I feel like some people are rushing for that finish line way too early. And you know what, Jim? Some kids could handle it, like an Anthony National, and some kids just can't. That's the truth.
So are they competing at all, or are they just training?
No, they're competing. Yeah. They're wrestling. They're winning most of their matches. They're losing matches too, you know. But I like where they're at. They're getting better every year, and that's the most important thing.
Are they chomping at the bit to go to the qualifiers and to do a little bit more, or are they kind of just doing what you let them do?
They started. My older one started talking about it this year. I'll start pushing him like 7th, 8th grade a little bit more. If he's really serious about this, he's gonna have to do something. I don't want him lazy. He's gonna have to do something. I don't care if he just chooses golf. That's fine. We're gonna go all out. I'm a believer in whatever you do, you put everything you have into it. So, eventually, he's going to hit that age where he is going to have to step up. But, I'm not pushing him to do those things. You don't have to be like a national champion at 10 years old,
Yeah, no, it's definitely about the long game.
Yep.
Having
But
that perspective. Fun is the name of the game.
Yeah, man, you got to have fun with it, I know Penn State a couple of years ago when they won the NCAA title, they're all about, having fun, And I think that's important, especially the youth kids' age, that they're enjoying themselves,
No, all around. And unfortunately, sports like wrestling or other combat sports or martial arts, specifically wrestling, can sometimes get a bad rap as not being fun. And nowadays you have guys like a Yanni who just talks about how much he loves wrestling. Whether it's the training component of it or the competition component. It's really refreshing to see guys like that are just so into it and love it. And I think part of that too comes from removing that ugly aspect of weight cutting to a certain extent to allow you to enjoy the practice component of it, and not just be about, I'm here to lose weight.
Yeah, isn't that guy awesome, man? I agree. I feel like most of the good ones, most of them are brought up the right way. But, you get parents trying to live through their kids, making their kids, suck down 6 pounds. And, yeah, that does give, you got a 9-year-old cutting like 5 pounds to make weight to win a tournament. I mean, give me a break. That's where it gets a bad rep. But it always stems from the parents. If you do a good job, you can pass it on to your kid. Usually the kid will grow up the right way. And, like I was saying in my club, I'm getting a lot of those youth kids that thankfully we have great parents.
So on the subject of parents, Gene, when I was growing up and when I was wrestling, you had some of the most infamous parents in New Jersey. And before I even knew you at Middlesex, I always thought you were this intimidating, brash guy because of the kids and the parents. And then when I met you, I realized that wasn't you. It was kind of the environment where your club was in. Speaking on some of those parents, do you have any kind of funny or outrageous, crazy stories you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I've seen it all, definitely, man. I've been doing this 25 years of coaching now. Been running my club all those 25 years. And definitely you see a lot of different individuals. Thankfully we have some mostly wonderful parents. And then, when you're doing things that long and you're dealing with that many people every year, you're bound to see, a lot of different things. And, we've had parents in jail while kids are coming to us. We've had parents that are doctors. I'm taking my kid to the ER a couple years ago, and who's taking care of him? But, somebody that I coached his father. So, you see everything, But, yeah, we definitely had some crazy ones, I guess you could say. Crazy stories. I had one parent that would, he would tape his kid. Supposedly, I found out about it. I had to talk with him, and he denied it. But everybody's saying he was taping his kid to the pull-up bar when he thought he wasn't working hard enough. So that was one thing that happened. Another guy, we're at a tournament. We're hanging out. We're having a couple drinks. Somebody put their drinks down on the table. He goes, "Are those for us?" And then the guy's like, "No." He just smacks them across the room. So just, a lot of little things like that. Nothing too crazy where anybody did anything really to break the law. But, the pull-up incident, that one bothered me a little bit. So I had to have a talk with that guy. And like I said, he denied it. But, we've had definitely some stormy parents. They get loud in the corner. I think I was a younger coach when I had a lot of those parents, and I definitely probably got walked on a little bit too much. Now that I'm a little bit older, I don't put up with that.
Now being older and having that experience, how have you learned from that experience? Maybe what's your perspective on dealing with parents, or maybe even having, relationships and being friendly with parents outside of the club?
Well, I learned when you see something, you say something right away. I used to, just let it kind of eat at me. And then when it escalates, then maybe I'd say something and it just wouldn't go over too well. But, try to always, if you see something you don't like, speak up, say something. Even if it means losing a kid, if you're helping somebody, that's more important, So, I definitely learned to, not hold back.
So you said,
to say, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you said you've had the club for 25 years. You've been in the game for pretty much 25 years. That's kind of the start of the club era in New Jersey. Can you give us and the folks at home a little bit of your wrestling pedigree, your background, what you were doing when you decided to open a club, and kind of how you've seen the growth of the club system in New Jersey? Because I feel like the way the clubs go in New Jersey is very unique compared to some of the other states that I've lived in and what I've seen in terms of how clubs are run. It's definitely on another level in New Jersey.
True, man. No doubt about it. I started my club. Basically, I started out of my 2-car garage, my family home, which you hear a lot of stories of. I went to the Edge Wrestling Club when I was a youth kid. Went on, wrestled at East Brunswick High School. Won a lot of titles and stuff, placed in states, all that. But I never won a state title, and that really bothered me. Was a horrible student, so I ended up going to Middlesex College, wrestled there a year. Didn't go to class, you know how that goes. And then I started coaching kids out of my garage while I was working at a warehouse as a forklift operator. And I hated the job, but I loved coming back and coaching kids. And started coaching at a local wrestling club called Over the Top. Doesn't exist anymore. It was around about a year. And hooked up with this kid, Tom Noto. Tom Noto from South River, who ended up becoming a 2-time state champ, wrestles for Hofstra, 100-something wins, mid-wins champ. To make a long story short, we had a good connection there. Over the Top went under. And then as I'm training Tom, he becomes state champion. We get a bunch of his friends come in. And one of the other kids I was training, he became county champion that year. And he's like, Gene, mind if I bring some more of my friends? Yeah, no problem. Before you know it, I'm getting all these Brunswick kids, coaching a rec there on the side. And next thing you know, we have like 50 kids in my garage at all different times. So the neighbors, they ended up sending a complaint. Got a bunch of them in the mail. And that's when I decided, I guess I got to get out of here. So I ended up finding a place and rented it out and never looked back.
Through the course of 25 years, and obviously you started as a passion project, it was your passion, it's what you love. Mm-hmm. What keeps you excited 25 years later, and is it still fun for you, or is it all business at this point?
No, it's a lot of fun for me, especially now that my kids are in the game, but I think, I really feel it's like my calling from God. I know I'm good at it. It's the thing that I do the best. The way I, get through to the kids, the results, and, I'm 100% sure it's what God put me on the earth to do. And the life lessons that we give these kids, they're second to none. And it's way more important to me, than making state champs or anything like that. And that's something I've learned over the years too. It used to be like, how many state champs can I get? Now everything's changed. I'm learning as a coach over 25 years, and I think I'm doing something good here. So that's what keeps me passionate. It just keeps getting better and better, and I keep learning still.
And how do you impart that on, say, like a dad that's living vicariously through his son and is only focused on his 10-year-old son winning, 4 state titles and going undefeated? Like, how do you impart on them that, we're making men here, we're teaching them life lessons. It's not always necessarily about winning and losing.
Yeah, well, the first thing I realize is it's not your life, it's your kid's life. So, that's the first thing. You got to step back, realize your kid's not your trophy, and realize that you got to let your kid live his life and make his decisions. And I may not love those decisions, but if he decides he doesn't want to wrestle, but as long as you get good grades, that's what I'm pretty picky about. But if he decides he wants to wrestle, he knows he's got a lot of opportunity with me, and he's got a lot of support. But being a good citizen, that's definitely number one. If he does become a 4-time state champ, great. If he never wrestles, that's fine too. But that's just lessons you learn from being a coach over the many years.
Gene, you were talking about how you know that this is your purpose, this is what you were put on this earth for, and
right.
I was blessed enough to have probably the best, junior college coaching staff with you, Coach Byard, and Mike, and you guys all brought.
Times, man.
Oh, it was the best. And you guys all brought something different to the table. And with you, it was the breakdown of the technique, really dissecting techniques and watching videotape. That was what I picked up from you, and kind of what I thought was your niche. What got you into studying videotape, and why is it so important?
Okay, so when I was in high school, there was an older guy, Don Ernst. He was the Olympic scouting technician back in the 1970s. He would travel with the team. He would, this was before, any video cameras. So he would travel with his reel-to-reel, and he would go to Bulgaria, Russia. He would film all the best. He was just way ahead of his time. He basically was the flow wrestling of the 1970s, if you want to call him that. All right, and he would get all this information, come back, and then eventually he'd put it all together, and when VHS came out, he would put it all, into a video. You can still get those videos today on, DVD and, I guess, downloads and stuff. But Don Ernst, he's the one that taught me you got to study the best in the world. That was always his philosophy. And this is going way back to when I was like 14, 15, doing lessons with him. Fortunately, he lived in Edison, so he was close by. We hooked up. And then he was actually coaching out of my club for years, so he's a guy I would have to say I learned the most from. But that got me into studying a lot of his vids and a lot of the newer guys. When I was in high school, the 92 team was phenomenal, so we were studying a lot of those guys, and of course the Russians. Always study the Russians. The Russians were the best on their feet. So that's what got me into it.
Now, when it comes to your coaching style and comes to even when you were wrestling, if you had to name like 2 or 3 wrestlers or coaches that you really have taken a lot from over studying their material, who would that be?
Well, definitely Don Ernst.
Yeah.
He'd probably be one. I would say growing up, I went to Kuvos for a while. So I went to Kuvos and picked up a lot of stuff from him as far as watching guys on video. I would say all the Russians, Vladimir Yumin, Boglasovs, newer guys, I would say like Cal Sanderson, newest guys, the whole Penn State team. There's so many out there, But when I'm teaching, I try to, look at the kid's style that I'm coaching, and I try to relate it to, different wrestlers that I'm studying. And I say, you know what, you should go watch Jordan Burroughs. I think you can pick up a lot from him. He wrestles like you, or some other kids. Maybe he's on a collar tie a lot, and he's lanky. Like, you can go watch David Taylor. I think you'd really enjoy him. So I kind of started doing that a lot too, like making kids fans of people. I feel like they get better that way. They get excited. They start watching the best. They do it on their own more. So that's something I kind of implemented into my coaching, is making the kids do it, not just studying myself.
Now, when it comes to your coaching and what you're studying, are you only studying Scholastic because that's what you're teaching most of the time, or are you watching everything?
I'm doing a lot more Folkstyle now, but, there's so much information out there now, and everybody's studying video that, you can't help it but to watch a lot of Freestyle, too, and you definitely pick up a lot. Whether it's Mike Mallon, Flow Wrestling, breaking it down, or, I'm always picking something up watching. And there's just so much information out there now. My wrestlers are watching that stuff on their own, so they're picking up knowledge from not just me anymore. Like the old days, they're actually getting it out there by themselves.
Gene, you'd mentioned that, you kind of encourage kids to be fans of certain wrestlers that, you can see in their style that may mesh with, say like a Jordan Burroughs or something. On the flip side of that, say you have a kid who has one very particular style, but he sees something very flashy, like funky, from like a Yanni or something, and it just doesn't, in your opinion, suit them or fit their style. How do you navigate those waters and try to break it down for the kid that, hey, this may not suit your style right now?
Well, I'll tell him this is exactly how I feel, and if it's a wrestler that's been training with me, I'm sure he knows I have his best interest and he trusts in what I say. So usually that won't be a problem. If he really loves it that much, I'll work with him on it, and we could try to come to some type of thing that's going to help him with it. But most of the wrestlers respect what I say because they know, in the past everything I've showed them usually is very beneficial. So I've not had any problems with that in the past.
Okay, good.
So, spending time in wrestling clubs myself, we always see the kid who maybe comes in 7th, 6th grade and just has 2 left feet and just can't get it done. But for some reason, they just keep showing up, and by the time senior year comes, they're on the podium or they're on top of the podium. What do you think what do you think the difference is? What do you think the turning point for those types of kids is? Is it just showing up? And, if you'd like to mention some of those kids that you've had over time that have been those kids, feel free to do it now.
Yeah, man, one kid always comes to mind, and it's one of your good buddies that you trained with. It's Jim Bashada.
The best.
Because that kid, when he started with me, he was the kid who wants to wrestle with Jim, and everybody's hand would go up, And then by Jim's senior year, nobody wanted to wrestle Jim. He was a beast, and complete turnaround. And that's based on his work ethic and his attitude. I really believe the hardest workers always prevail. The kids who really want it, the kids who want to be there, not just show up, but put in the effort. That's something you always did too, Jen. That's why you were the best kid on the team. You always work the hardest. So it's always the hardest workers that do the best. And those kids seem to always be the closest to me, too.
Yeah, and with Jim Bashada, he was a sophomore when I was a senior, and I remember wrestling him my senior year and, was nowhere close. And then his senior year, and when I was coming back, he was beating my butt, and I was like, what's going on? I was able to see that turn in that 2-year period that he had made, because he was one of Zach's original guys. That kind of goes to my next point is you had a bunch of guys who pretty much started the underground strength gym for Zach, right? And you've always been someone who's kind of preached to strength training and getting that extra work in. What do you think the importance of strength training is, and how it will kind of help someone get to that next level?
Yeah, I think it's different for every individual. For example, Cal Sanderson claims he never really strength trained. He always says, my wrestling mat, my live was my strength training, But then he goes on and trains David Taylor, and David Taylor feels he can't win at the highest level, and then he starts strength training, and he feels a nutrition, he feels like a whole new person, So whether you're talking Olympic level or you're talking high school, I feel, some kids need more than others. And some kids need, depending on your body type, depending on your genes, how strong you are naturally already. Some kids are behind the curve, as far as the strength goes. I feel some kids need more than others. But, there's so much information out there now and so many programs that I feel, it's up to the kids to go out there, and it's up to them to put in that work if they really want it.
Yeah, and I actually feel like I might have benefited from being taped to the pull-up bar at some point in my early youth or high school.
No doubt, man. It doesn't hurt to be strong and fast,
No, it does not. And I can remember I used to be a special education teacher at Southern Regional and their wrestling program. And Jerry Tabacino always used to tell the kids that there's never a line at the pull-up bar.
Yep.
With Jimmy and I...
Also, when you go out and exercise, it just does a lot of things for your mental side too. I remember just going out for runs and stuff. you do your best thinking sometimes when you're alone and training. Sometimes training with others, you know, to pick your pace up. But it definitely helps with a lot of different things, not just getting stronger, you know.
I think that's where, you know, doing wrestling as a youth kind of helps you mature, right? You have all that alone time, being on the road, cutting the weight all by yourself, all that time to think. And, you know, as a kid, you might think of it as this is monotonous and stupid. But then, you know, as I get older and reflect on it, I realize how much molding and how much growth was done through those periods.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah.
I agree.
Go into, you know, not every kid, it's not made for every kid, or some kids are behind the curve and late bloomers. As a wrestling coach, you know, being in that scene, especially dealing with parents are always trying to push the kid to go D1, always trying to push the kid to go to the bigger program and not see the whole picture of things. Maybe this kid doesn't have the academics, or maybe he just doesn't have that work ethic for Division I. As a coach, how do you tell a parent, how do you tell a kid, like, hey, maybe you should look at that D2 school that's giving you an offer, maybe you should go to, you know, Middlesex for a year?
Yeah, like I said, we get to learn our kids over the years, and they definitely trust us. They trust our decisions. I'm sure, you know, parents that, you know, some of these kids have grown up with us since they're like 6, 7 years old, and now they're ready to make a college choice. So they're certainly going to come to us and ask us our opinion. And sometimes they don't like it, you know, but we're always going to be as honest as we can. And, you know, sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they won't. Of course, they're going to make their own decision in the long run. But they do listen to the advice. And, you know, the kids that have been with me over the years that believe in what I have to say, you know, they'll definitely take my advice because they know I have their best interest.
For the ones that don't listen to you and things kind of go awry, have you ever had them come back and say, you know, you were right, we really should have listened to you?
Sure, definitely. And you know, I've had kids drop out, or kids that I had a kid at Drexel a couple years ago. He just, you know, he's blaming it on everything why he stopped, but you know, he just knew he wasn't cut out for it. And he had a great Division III school staring at him up by New Hampshire up there. So, you know, he elected to try to D1, and you know, it just didn't work out. So, you know, you know, he's still in school. He's still doing well. So that's, you know, that's the most important. You know, use wrestling to get an education, but you certainly don't want to lose a scholarship over it, you know.
I had met you, and we got to, you know, get to know each other through Middlesex County College, like I said before. What are your thoughts on the benefits of junior college wrestling and just, you know, junior college wrestling as a whole?
Man, it's so funny when you talk about how expensive college is, and it just like goes up and up and up. I feel like you just save so much money if you just hold back, wrestle those 2 years JUCO. If you're not, you know, if you're not going to get a scholarship and you're trying to be a walk-on, it's almost like, what is the point, man? You know, it's like I might as well go to Rutgers and just do club wrestling. You know, if I just want to go there and get an education. Otherwise, yeah, start at JUCO and work your way up. I think Rich Lewis is like the prime example we have in our area. You know, of going to Iowa Central a couple of years, doing well and kind of climbing the ladder, and look how well he's done. But
yeah,
you could save a ton of money with those 2 years.
It's definitely a huge thing. I went away to school my first year and then came back and went to junior college for a year. And, you know, just for a lot of people, the maturity level, you know, on so many different levels, be it, you know, being responsible for yourself, going to class, taking care of stuff. At 18 years old, you know what I mean? Some kids just aren't at that level already there.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. That's a great point. Yeah, just getting
know,
yourself ready to be away from your parents and everything. Yep.
Yeah, get yourself ready. Maybe go to community college, get a job, so you have that sort of structure built into it. You're taking on some more responsibilities, but at the same time, you still have some of those comforts, and gives you a chance to ease into things. And again, like you were saying, if you're not getting that full scholarship offer, you're better off, because of the way how much four-year institutions cost at this point. You're better off going to the junior college to save that money.
Definitely. I mean, if you're getting a scholarship and you're paid the rest, there's nothing like that. You got to do what's required. But if somebody not on scholarship, I just don't understand why more people don't do it. You know, I know everybody's got different situations. Like, I know some people, like Rutgers is a nearby college. Some parents work for Rutgers, so they get to send their kids there for free. So, of course, they're going to do that, you know, which makes perfect sense. But most people don't have that situation, you know. But they could be saving a ton of money. A lot of them look at, my kid got into Rutgers, I'm going to send them, you know. And now you're like 70 grand in a hole like the first 2 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to ego, or thinking you know you're above or better than that junior college or the community college, or there's like a stigma to it. I know, you know, growing up in Ocean County, you know, the kids would always joke calling it like Ocean County High School, you know, because they viewed it as you weren't, you know, it's kind of like. Back in the day for me too, I think we were about the same age, but you know, people kind of looked down at going to vocational school at that time, whereas now it seems like it's more, maybe not celebrated, but it's encouraged, and having a trade is a good thing, or being an electrician or a plumber, some of these things are important. Like, we need mechanics, and you like cars, so let's foster and encourage you to continue to learn how to work on cars.
Yep. And I remember when Jimmy was at Middlesex, and I was coaching him, we had a lot of like state champions coming in, state place winners. You know, they thought they were the shiznit, and then we'd go out to Binghamton and wrestling. Like, what do you mean? I got Jordan Lean first round from Cornell. Like, they're in shock, you know. And you know, they're getting spanked. They're 0-2, and next thing you know, they're quitting a few weeks later. Some of these guys, you know, they had no idea what they were getting into. So, whatever level of college wrestling you're in, you're gonna get competition, and it's going to be rough. So, you know, a lot of people do look down on it going in because they just don't understand it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, misconception with the junior college, community college sports programs is I don't get that. I'm not going to get the level of competition that I would at, you know, say a Division II or Division I school. But oftentimes you're going to the same tournaments, or in my case, we were going to the same meets where, you know, I may have had an OCC jersey on, but I was still lining up with, you know, schools from New York that were Division I, Division II schools. So you still get those levels of competition, and sometimes if you're not ready for that, you get your butt kicked, and you realize that competition, you can find that competition no matter what, you know, what moniker, Division I, JUCO, whatever it is, competition's out there, and the coaches are going to get that for you.
Oh, certainly. And now girls wrestling's getting huge out here.
Yeah, we just had my college coach from Monmouth University on. We kind of planted the seed for him to plant the seed to the athletic director at Monmouth University that Monmouth University needs to be a trendsetter and be the first school in New Jersey to have women's Division I wrestling.
Yep. Awesome.
So with the female wrestling and the girls wrestling, is there a boost in girl members at the club?
Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah, you know, over the years I was always coaching like 1 or 2, and you know, now I got about 6 or 7 signed up. So it's, you know, definitely a big increase. I know Elite Wrestling, they have like a whole girls team, a club that's, you know, nearby, and they travel all over the place. So yeah, I'm looking to increase my numbers even more, but yeah, I get a lot of drop-ins and stuff like that. And when I do freestyle classes, I'll definitely see a lot more girls.
Now,
so, yeah, I definitely noticed a significant difference. Are
the girls wrestling with the boys, or are they just wrestling with each other?
No, they wrestle with the boys, and I got some girls that are pretty darn tough. I have one from a neighboring town that she just placed out in Fargo. She whoops a lot of the boys, so they learn to respect her.
How does that go over with the parents? Are there any male parents that don't want their sons wrestling with girls, or is it a pretty open-minded situation?
I think it's definitely changed a lot. You know, it's come a long way. You know, wrestling, it is one of those blue-collar, tough sports, so you do get some of those parents that are, you know, pretty hardcore, like my son can't lose to a girl type thing. But, you know, you could see them maybe grimacing in the corner, but yeah, they've learned to accept the girls up there, and they know there's some tough ones. You know, they know they work hard too, and you know, they deserve that.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was a boy here in Colorado at 101 or whatever weight the lightest weight was, who he forfeited because he said he didn't want to wrestle a girl. And he was a senior too, so he gave up the opportunity to potentially be a state place winner or state champion because he didn't want to wrestle a girl.
Wow.
And then the girl went on to the girl went on to get 3rd or 4th, I believe.
Yep. Wow.
Gene, you were someone, kind of go back to the junior college and kind of lessons you taught me. We were sitting in the stands at JUCO Nationals, and Tom Ryan was there with Tommy Rollins, and I was being a wrestling fanboy, and oh my God, Tom Ryan. And you had worked with Tom Ryan when Tommy Noto was at Hofstra, and you kind of just looked over and was like, you need to stop giving these dudes so much respect and kind of realize that these dudes are humans just like you. That's, it's not that when you go out there you're losing because these dudes are better than you. You're losing because your mindset's not right. And you were the club coach of the Zanetti brothers, who have wrestlers' mindset now. Kind of what got you?
The CJA guys,
yeah. What got you into the teaching mindset and kind of looking at wrestling more than just technique and what goes on the mat?
I think when I started training kids, when I started coaching, that was when I realized I want them to do things that I didn't do, or I don't want them to make the same mistakes that I made. So it's always, everything's trial and error as a coach and as a wrestler and in life. So I just took all my lessons and I tried to apply them to help the kids. So one lesson, I'll give you a quick example. I always made a list of people when I was in high school that I had to beat. So I lost to a handful of kids in high school. And, this one kid I had, he was a state champ, Brent Conley. I ended up wrestling at the top of the East.
Del Val.
That's East of the East now, but it was called Top of the East back then. So I was wrestling him for in the semis. And he ended up beating me like 4-2. And I was like, man, I was right there, But I was always like, oh, I'm right there. But I've never beaten the best kids. The next year I lost to a kid, Ken Rossi. But I always make a list of kids that I wanted to beat. And I would always train and go for a run and, look down the end of the block and start yelling their name and run after them, like little things like that. So I was training really hard, but I always put them above me. And that was always the problem, So I felt like, when I had Noto, I was like, we ain't looking up at anybody. They're going to look at you. We're not going to make a list. You're going to be on top of that list. Let them look up at you, and that's the way we always treated it. And it worked for him. And fortunately, he was my first guy. And I've been doing that ever since. Kind of like the Rocky crumbles up the Drago, right? He sees the picture of him and he crumbles it up. It's like, I don't need this anymore. I'm better than him. So that's kind of what started it all right there. Was I was doing things the wrong way. And then, the Zanetti brothers, oh man, they took off with wrestling mindset. And Tom Noto's brother, Chris, he's actually doing a head sharp, which a lot of people in my area are doing. So the mental thing's out there now. It's getting like wrestling clubs. There's more and more popping up. But those guys are all the best.
What was that second one you just mentioned?
Oh, head sharp. Yeah, most of my kids actually go to him. Wrestling mindset is huge. They're doing a phenomenal job. Really proud of those guys. They were some of my original kids I trained right after Noto. But Tom Noto's brother, Chris, he runs Head Sharp. He deals with a lot of wrestlers. He has an app out that people can go on. And you just purchase the app, and I think it's like a monthly fee. But definitely want to check out Head Sharp. It's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, I like what you said. It was just, perspective. Instead of worrying about those guys and focusing on those guys. And those two gentlemen you mentioned, I grew up watching their state finals on repeat. They were both state champs.
Yeah.
So, just changing that mindset and be like, no, I'm the guy. I'll let them worry about me. One thing we used to do when I was at Middlesex, and used to give me some crap about it, but I used to not read the bracket, right? That first time up, not worry about who I'm wrestling, right? If I'm going to win this, I got to go through everyone anyway.
Yep. Yeah, and now that we have all these, mindset coaches and stuff, and, there's so many different ones out there now. There's just so much more knowledge for these kids. They have it at their fingertips, but it's up to the kid to take advantage and work. Somebody like you, Jim, you would take advantage of every resource you could to be the best, and that's what it boils down to. I don't like taking credit for, I made this state champ, I made this kid great. It's really the kid that makes himself great, and we just, we guide you guys.
With a guy like Jimmy, I've seen him be his own worst enemy in a sense where he's willing to put in the work, but
yeah.
At the same time, he can be like a dumb horse, and he's just going to work himself to death. How do you approach that sort of kid that just wants to be the best so bad and is willing to do anything and everything, but in doing everything and anything can also be a detriment to his own success? How do you approach that kind of situation, or how do you rein a kid back a little bit?
Yeah, I think you need the right people in your corner, and you got to trust what they tell you. Jimmy's, he's willing to do anything to be the best, and that's what you have to do. But sometimes we overtrain. I know Jimmy certainly has. I know I certainly did back in the day. Going out and running 15 miles every day isn't the answer. So it's not always do more. It's always train smart. So maybe Jimmy needs to stop flipping the tire in the backyard and go over some video, or look at his last 5 matches, write down some things. Maybe need a little more mental training, that we didn't have back then. And he needs to go on like the Head Sharp app, So there's different ways to definitely to work, different things to work on rather than just focus on putting everything you have into beating your body up, And I think that's what a lot of people do. You feel like, I got to outwork my opponent, which Dan Gable goes back to him saying that you always got to outwork your opponent, which is true. Okay? But, there's working hard and working smart. So,
as you say that, Gene, I can distinctly remember sitting at a restaurant in Minnesota after the Nationals and kind of being there and telling you, I'm going to do this in the offseason. I'm going to work so much harder, put in so much more time. And you looked at me and you're like, that's retarded. You can't do more than you already do. You need to be a little bit smarter about how you do things. And it was those 2 comments you made to me at Nationals that were just like, I kind of need to change my perspective, and the way I'm going about this might not be the right way, and going balls out as hard as I can might not be the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Penn State's really big on that too. The time, Cal Sanderson always talks about the time we put in is quality time, we want to train smart, not just hard.
Smarter, not harder is what I always tell people.
But I do believe in, you do want to outwork your opponent, but there's a lot of ways to do that. It doesn't mean you just go for a 25-mile run every day, There's a lot of ways you can outwork your opponent.
Yeah, I liked what you said about, analyzing tape and breaking things down and specifically working on those techniques. And I think, Jimmy and I talk about it all the time. If only someone had pulled us aside very early on and really expressed to us or showed us the importance of drilling and what level of intensity you need to have in drilling is such a huge thing, because I feel like, at least when I was in high school, for a lot of kids, drilling was just kind of going through the motions and having plastics on and having sweats on and just cutting weight. So the drilling kind of goes by the wayside, and just let me get to the live wrestling because that's what I want to do. But you're not improving your technique when you're scrapping and you're going live So I really like how guys like you and Mike and some of the other coaches have expressed and shown how important drilling is, and that's where the magic is going to happen. It has nothing to do with the live goes.
Oh, no question, man. And some people, they just get caught up in just the working out aspect, or some people just get caught in just the technique aspect, which I was, guilty of for a few years there. And, you want to be well-rounded as a wrestler. So, I think you got to put a little bit of the right time into each area. And if you're weaker in an area, you certainly don't want to ignore it, but work on it. Something I tell to my wrestlers a lot.
So when it goes into setting up a workout or setting up what you're going to teach that day, what is it determined by who shows up to the class, or do you have specific things that maybe you saw during the weekend that you want to work on? How do you structure your daily classes?
I think it depends on what time of year it is, Jim, because like for a club, high school classes are really small come in season. So like in season, I'll do a ton of Q&A. Areas they want to work on, and then I'll just, I'll let them get a drill in. We'll tweak things. It's not time. Let's do a Hammerlock series. It's not time for that, while they're competing hard. So we'll get a lot of drills in, a lot of speed drills, a lot of Q&A. They have a lot of questions from their matches and things like that. But in the off season, we'll do more learning. I'll show more. I don't write a lesson plan. I used to do that, like when I started coaching. Now I just kind of watch them drill and say, wow, we got to work on this. Or like you said, if we go to a tournament, I'm always evaluating them. They're evaluating themselves, watching video, and, we'll go over, areas where I feel we got to work on. If we bring a whole team and we stink on bottom, we're going to be doing bottom,
So mentioning, not being good on bottom. One thing I've kind of noticed is wrestling became a sport of just wrestling on your feet at a lot of places, a lot of clubs, a lot of practice rooms. And
2 for 1.
Yep.
One thing I always felt that was my edge was I could wrestle on the mat, and it wasn't because the club I was going to or where I was because we were wrestling on the mat. It was just because that was kind of always my strength. What do you think the importance of mat wrestling is, and is that a way that you kind of help a kid who might be on the brink of having success? Like, hey, maybe if we get better on top and bottom, we can turn that corner.
Yeah, no, that's true, man. I agree, especially when you go to college, man. That's where I get a lot of my wrestlers are like, Coach, I can't get off the bottom. I'm getting killed, Everything just changes all of a sudden, but because everybody's beef. But, the mat wrestling, oh, my God. Yeah, I actually had a state champion thanks to mat wrestling. I used to do a lot of just feet, and then what really turned me on to mat wrestling was I realized, everybody's not fast. Everybody's not slick on their feet, and there's kids that are, going to be hammers and win a lot of matches because of their top like you, Jim. And I had a kid, Brendan Callis, years ago, not too long ago, but Brendan, he wrestled at a Seton Hall prep. He won 2 state titles, and I believe it was his junior year, he chose top every match in the state tournament. And all close matches, all like 1-point matches, but he just rode everybody out. And in the finals, he ended up with a very tough McFadden that he ended up turning, and still chose top. But Brendan, without his top, there's no way he's a state champ. So just, certain kids, you got to learn your kids. It definitely helps for everybody to be great on top, and you certainly have to get off the bottom. We know that.
Yeah, that could be a long 2 minutes if you got nothing in your arsenal.
Or more, first year in college.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's always... when you see someone take top, everyone in the crowd kind of looks at each other like, oh, did he just do that? That's always a good ace to have in your back pocket.
Definitely. Especially, college rules, they changed the last few years, and you get that 4-point tilt, and then you hit another one. It's like, holy cow, I'm up 8-10 nothing already,
Yeah. And I would like to see them add riding time to the high school level, and I would also like to see 1 point for every minute.
I agree. Yeah, it's like, why don't they bring some of these things down to high school? Is it, maybe the size of the mat? They don't have college out of bounds rules. I mean, every summer tournament on that, every tournament they have college out of bounds rules. Then we get into regular season with the NJSIA. There's no college out of bounds rules. So, it's like we're preparing the kids for college, but we're not preparing them for college. It's like, make up your mind here.
Right. You got to have that continuity across the board.
You do, yeah, definitely.
Kind of speaking on those rules and having different rules for high school and college, what are your thoughts on, there being Scholastic wrestling opposed to just freestyle all year round to kind of, the end goals, obviously, to be an Olympic gold medalist or to take your wrestling to the international level. Do you think there is a hindrance in doing Scholastic as much as we do in this country?
I definitely think it could take a step back, but because kids got to focus on that. That's their goal is to be a national champion before it's to be an Olympic champion. Most of them, some of them have that dream when they're younger, but most of them really want to be that national champion. And most of them, the good ones, I forget the stats. I know Wrestling Mindset did it. I know a few years ago, 80-something% of the kids on the podium in New Jersey were in Fargo wrestling. So, a lot of the better kids are wrestling freestyle. How much freestyle? Probably not enough, Jim, because I was just having this conversation the other day. Years ago, before internet and everything, once springtime came, there was a list of freestyle tournaments, I'm going to say every weekend, all spring, all the way to Fargo, and there was no such thing at any club called Folkstyle. Everything was freestyle at every club, including mine. So we didn't wrestle a lick of Folkstyle until after Fargo. So times have definitely changed, and I think a lot of it has to do with the internet and people want to make money at tournaments. So here comes, Ward to Shore. Here comes another Folkstyle tournament. Here comes another Folkstyle tournament. And then the list just got shorter and shorter and shorter. And now I think a lot of the lesser kids are intimidated by it, and they just don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I feel like it was when I was in high school when they started doing more of those Scholastic tournaments in the summer. And, me and some of the guys I trained with, we used to poo-poo those kids that would go to the Scholastic tournaments. Like, well, why aren't you on a Rawway this week? We got a freestyle ranking tournament. And then kind of just going to those Scholastic tournaments, a lot of the times kids are wrestling the same kids they're going to wrestle during the season, opposed to, you go to a freestyle tournament, you have kids from all over the state there.
Yep. It's we preach over and over as club coaches, and some of them listen, you always get the ones that do, but a lot of them don't, and then they hit high school, I wish I wrestled more freestyle, you always hear it then.
So being a Jersey guy, we're all Jersey guys here. We all have our region pride, right? I know it's a little different nowadays because they mess the regions up, and it's not the same. Something I'd actually like to get your thoughts on the new region system, but going back to that old format when you're a region 5 guy, we're region 6 guys, in your opinion, throughout time, what has been kind of the toughest region or the most saturated area in New Jersey?
Oh man, that I saw, I don't want to offend any older guys when Newton was around and Phillipsburg and region 1 and all that, but that wasn't my time. So my time, region 6 was the deepest I ever saw. For those few years, your neck of the woods. It was just, there were kids not making states that probably could have been on a state podium, one after another. So I don't know what it was those few years, but there were, there were so many kids. I forget. You could probably tell me how many were in state finals or champions at Region 6 a couple of those years, but I never saw anything like it.
I think Scotty's senior year, and I think in '99 they either had 5 or 6 champs.
I was Molinaro was there and stuff.
Yeah. And even when you and Richie were in high school, we had the super region of 5 and 6, and I remember seeing guys, and Richie experienced this, guys getting 4th and then having to wrestle someone from the other region who got 2nd, and the guy who got 4th winning. I saw that happen a couple times. Richie had to wrestle Esposito, and he didn't know who Esposito was, and, rolling up, having to wrestle him first round of super regions.
Yeah, that's not right. I'm glad they did away with that because technically it's states, but there's no seating. It's you're screwed. You could have the 2 best kids wrestling each other, first round, So it's good they did away with it.
What are your thoughts on the new way the regions are now, on how they're kind of all over the place and there's not really a rhyme or reason to who's in what region based on location?
Yeah, man, I don't even think they have a good grasp on it. I think they're still trying to really figure out the best way. That's why it changed again, But site location, that makes sense to change the site location. I was going up to 100 in Central, Region 5. That was most of my guys. I could watch just about all my wrestlers from the area. But now, with geographically, it really doesn't make any sense. I know they're trying to make it more competitive in each region and make it, more even. But, I got kids wrestling in 5 different regions now, all from my same area. So it's it sucks as a club coach. I can't go watch all my kids like I used to, So I hate it, just for that reason alone.
So we're talking about Atlantic City, talking about regions. you had mentioned Ken Rossi before. Ken Rossi versus Pete Peretta is one of my favorite state finals of all time, and so
yeah,
is
it's some good finals.
and so is Brett Connolly versus, I believe it was Isaiah Cardinelli. He was losing like
No, it's Josh Cardinelli,
Josh,
his older brother.
yeah.
I used to train with him a lot too. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so those are kind of the matches I grew up on.
Okay.
Obviously, watching a Jason Nace against Johnny Martin. Those are kind of the the matches that pop out in my head. What are some of your favorite state finals?
Ooh, favorite state finals. Man, keep naming them because he's doing good. Oh my God, there's so many. But yeah, man, the Peretta, Rossi, oh, those are fun, right?
Pat Lynch, Damian Covington.
All those. Yeah. Coyle and Logan, like all that stuff, man. Just the 90s were fun, yeah. That was a good time.
Blake
But,
Maffei,
yeah, there's just
Ken
so
Rossi.
many matches. But my favorite championship would have to be Tom Noto winning his first against Mike Booth. But
I was there.
Noto actually.
What year was that?
I'm gonna pull up
98.
Noto, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually ended up beating. These guys were a little younger than him, but he ended up beating Gutnick in his bracket, who was state champ. LaForge in his bracket, who was state champ.
Wasn't Valente in that bracket?
He beat Dubuque in his bracket, who was state champ, and then he beat Booth in the finals, who became state champ the next year. So pretty awesome.
And that was your first state champ?
That was my first state champ, man. But
Nice.
that's why we don't look at names, you know.
Yeah.
We would have been in trouble.
So, in your opinion,
Yep.
who is the greatest New Jersey high school wrestler of all time?
Oof. Wow. Talking about Blair too, right?
Sure, why not?
All right, Steve Mocco, he made the Olympics.
Okay. But I'm saying just so there's
In high school?
yeah, in high school and then of
Okay,
all time like out of high school
The
too.
most dominant, and this isn't all 4 years, so I'm going to say just the most dominant at one time in one season was easily Damian Hahn,
Thank you. That's what I always say.
hands down.
Yeah.
I mean, he just took Bennett in the final, and that was a fun match to watch too, Jim. He just really played with him. I mean, he's thrown this huge guy through the air like it's nothing, man. Fireman's carry after fireman's carry, ducks.
Well,
He's just having fun out there.
it was the first
I
time.
never seen anything like it, man. After his final, there was kids around that whole mat, like, I mean, the whole mat getting autographs from him. You know, there was nobody like Damian Hahn in high school.
I was one of those kids getting his autograph. I was there. I was on NJSI, whatever the public channel was. I was on there after he got done. But Damian Hahn was, for me, you know, that's when I was growing up. I was in like 6th grade. You know, he was the first person I ever saw in the state finals who would take someone down and let him up. Like, to me, that was like, this dude's unreal.
Yeah. Oh, he was having fun out there, man. He just put on a show for everybody, and I've never seen anybody do that, you know, in Jersey. Like, just put on a show. So him his senior year, I'm not saying maybe his freshman year, but him his senior year, he was the very best high school New Jersey wrestler I ever saw, most dominant. Scott Winston was pretty tough his senior year too, but I have to give it to Damian Hahn.
Gene, before we get you out of here, one thing I want to ask you is, you know, as a wrestling coach, you know, you have the ability to watch kids grow up. You have the ability to watch them outside of the mat and have success off the mat. As a coach, you know, obviously you don't want to single anyone out, but what are some of your favorite success stories?
Favorite success stories? Man, there's so many, you know. It's just, when I think about this question, there's so many kids running through my mind. It's the scholarships. You know, right now, Jim, we got 30-plus kids wrestling at the college level. So, you know, that's the most we've ever had. So, to me, that's right there. That's a success story in itself.
That's amazing.
And, yeah, man. So, you know, you want to do good for the kids because, you know, once they're out of there, I'll keep in touch with them. But now their college coaches have them for 4 years. And, you know, some of them come back. They say hi. They send you nice messages. You get the calls and texts. But, you know, we do what we can with them for the 4 years. And we see the people they grow into. And, you know, we hope we help mold them, you know, as club coaches and as mentors. And, you know, guys like John Schleifer just graduating Princeton. He's got a good job now, you know. Guys I train like that, you know, there's great success stories. You know, and then there's also, unfortunately, you know, it's life, and you deal with a lot of people. So we come across death. We come across people becoming doctors. We come across the good and the bad, you know. We come across kids dying of drugs. We come across people that are drug counselors, helping people off drugs. You know? So we got it all. We got every end. and I've seen every aspect, but mostly good. I'm proud to say. I'd say in like the high 90s, man. Wrestling does good for off the mat.
Yeah, it builds character for sure.
It does, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, building character, making men, and as someone who had coached at the high school level for over a decade, probably one of the best things a parent ever said to me, thanked me one day. I was walking to my car after a meet or a practice, and he said, "I just want to thank you. You're helping my son become a man."
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
You know,
sometimes you don't hear that enough, you know?
No, you don't hear that enough. And the beauty of it is that that's all it takes to make your day, to make your week, to make your season, or 10 years later to still remember that moment and know that you had an impact on that kid who then went on to a school, got a degree, and is now a successful engineer. That those are the kind of things that just really stick out and make it all worth your while. You know, it's not necessarily
no doubt,
about...
Man. And you don't know what people are dealing with, too. Like, some people have it, you know, pretty easy, and some people don't realize how tough people have it. I have one kid who's living... I was letting him come to the club free because, you know, he had a tough situation. He's living in his grandmom's basement on a mattress, eating out of a cooler down there, you know. So, but he, you know, he's always at the club, always working hard for years. So, you know, we took care of a kid like that. You know, he deserved it through his hard work. You know, that's how he rewarded us, how he paid us. And I just had another kid. He lost his father a few months back, you know. So now we're dealing with that, and the kid's really stepped up. This kid lost his father the day before the regions, and he ended up competing in the regions. He was unseeded, and he ended up, you know, getting through and making the states. He was around the way. So, you know, a lot of people dealing with a lot of things out there, but wrestling, the point is, you know, wrestling gets you up for those things. It helps you battle through those tough times.
Yeah, it does, and, you know, it's always one of those things I go back to that's the core of who I am, you know, those lessons I've learned on the mat, lessons I learned from you and Mike, you know, that's what stays with me, that's what keeps me going to this day, and, you know, I'm super grateful and appreciative of the time I got to spend with you and under your learning tree and teach me things. That's why we wanted to have you on here. We knew Gene was going to be a good interview, talk about New Jersey wrestling, so we appreciate it. Before we get you out of here, Gene, just let the people know where they can find you, and, you know, if they want to go to CJA Wrestling Club, where they can find that.
Yeah, you just Google CJA Wrestling Club. I'm on Instagram, CJA Wrestling Club, Facebook, but you Google CJA Wrestling Club, and you go straight to my website. You can enroll, you can, sign up for a free trial, and we've got a lot of good info on there. Go on my Instagram page, you see some videos, some technique stuff. And but thanks for having me, Jim, and good talking to you guys, man.
Yeah,
you guys keep up the great work.
I always love reminiscing about the old days of wrestling. It warms my heart, and yeah, I'm a lifelong fan. I may not get on the mat much these days, but I appreciate everyone that does it and is helping the youth out there to become strong, powerful, positive role models and good people, like you said before. So we appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Stay cool out there on the East Coast.
Yeah, man, it's hot.
All right,
guys. Thank you so much.
For sure. Have a great day.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Doing a great job.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.